Hey everyone, welcome back to the Leadership Project with your host Mick Spears. Our vision is to inspire all leaders to challenge the status quo. We bring you weekly topics and thought-provoking guests to get you to stop, reflect, and think about what it means to be a leader in a modern world. Our aim is to help you become the leader you wish you always had, as we learn together and lead together. Today's episode is brought to you by Pat Flynn and his team at SPI, or Smart Passive Income. I'm often asked questions about how I do all the things I do, whether it be this podcast, our cohort-based courses, or just structuring my business. Well, Pat has been a great inspiration to me, and I benefit greatly from being part of his community, SPI Pro, and from the SPI courses and workshops they offer. We are including a link in the show notes where you too can apply to be a part of SPI Pro or take advantage of their amazing courses and workshops. Now, on with the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Leadership Project. I'm delighted to introduce you today to Jillian Benbow. Jillian is the Director of Community Experience at SPI Media, an organisation run by Pat Flynn, who's had a very big influence on my life. And I follow Pat and I've learned a lot from him through things like his book, Will It Fly? Wonderful book, one for you to all look at if you're interested in launching your own business, things like superfans, etc. And he brought Jillian in to manage his community, which speaks volumes about the person that we have with you here today. Jillian describes herself as being mission-driven, a creative that's in a metrics-driven world, and I'll be curious to hear what that is all about. And she dedicates her life to growing consumer trust and experience through community. And today we're going to talk about some of the shifts that have happened in the world, what is community, and what as leaders we need to think about as the world has changed, particularly around a move to quite a virtual world, a work from home world. What does this community thing mean, and what can it mean as a leader? So Jillian, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you here today. Please take some time.
Thank you so much.
Please take some time now to introduce yourself a little bit more in detail, more of your background and your experience and what led you to be with us today.
All right. Well, as Mick said, I'm Jillian. I'm the Director of Community Experience at SPI Media. Smart Passive Income is what SPI stands for. If you're kind of like, wait, Pat Flynn, he's the passive income guy. He is. And I've been working in digital community for over a decade now, which is a little disturbing to think about. I'm like, where has my youth gone? But yeah, I've been in it for a long time. And, for a very long time, people just did not understand what I was doing. They're like, oh, you moderate a Facebook group? I'm like, no, I do not. Although I did originally, and there's just a lot of confusion about what is it to be a community manager and how do you manage a community that's completely digital. So things have, it's become more common. Now there are platforms where we can launch communities. You don't have to be a tech company with, rounds of VC funding where you custom build your own forum space. Now you can purchase a platform. You can, Circle, Mighty Networks. There's many to choose from. And anybody can kind of create community around, a common interest. And then the pandemic came along, everyone's favorite. And it really kind of hyper accelerated people wanting to have real community in a digital space. So the pandemic's not great, but the community piece has been a wild ride, and I've really enjoyed being a part of it these last several years.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Jillian. And thinking about that, if you asked me 10 years ago, what is this all about? I wouldn't have known for sure. And the world has changed a lot, accelerated in the last 2 years, that change, but the world has certainly changed a lot in the last 10 years. One of the things that I often tell people, just a side note for a moment, I think it might be interesting, a stat that I once read that says that 65% of people that are graduating from school this year will end up doing jobs that don't even exist yet. All right? And that gives you a flavour of how much the world is changing. And I often say this to young people that end up with purpose anxiety, and they wonder, well, what am I going to be when I, air quotes, grow up kind of thing. And people getting anxiety about what that's going to be. But the world changes so often that it's probably dangerous to be too planned out and prescriptive in terms of what you want to be. So this raises an interesting question to me. When you were graduating from school, Jillian, what did you think you were going to end up being, if you know?
Oh my gosh. What did I think? It was all a blur. I was like, I'm going to be successful in business. and there was no actual contextual information in there as to what that meant. Because I had no idea. And when I was in school, I was forced to pick a major. They called it open option where I went to school. So I was open option, which meant I hadn't declared my major, and got to the point where I had to go to a special meeting with everybody else like me that said, hey, you can't register for classes next semester until you pick a major. Like, you're more than halfway done with school. So you need to pick your focus. And I was like, I don't know. I'm interested in lots of things, but it wasn't, I've always been envious of people who knew, like freshman year, 18 years old. And they're like, I'm going to be an accountant, which, I mean, I'm not envious of that path, but like just having that, like, yes, this is what I will do with my life. Cause even today I'm like, well, I'm 40. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up.
Oh, I love it. Well done, Jillian. And thank you for openly sharing that. But that's the thing, right? Yeah. So why
and that's what's great about it.
Yeah. Why overthink it when the world is going to change so much? I mean, building skills is important, and transversal skills that you can apply into multiple areas. Things like relationship building, which you are exceptional at. Building core skills, I think, is something that you should focus on. But getting obsessed about, I'm going to be this or I'm going to be that. I'll openly say I'm 48 and I'm just starting my third career, right? So I've done 15 years in aerospace, 15 years in mobility, and now I'm launching a new career. So don't overthink it is the answer there. What's your reflection there?
Yeah, and you can plan all you want, but life's going to kick you in the ass either way. And you're going to have to be good at pivoting and rolling with things, because especially the way the world is anymore, every day you wake up not knowing, are we in another like war? Is what's happening with, pandemics? Like it's a very stressful time. So don't add more stress to your plate. And I will say, so now that I'm on the oldies side, as my daughter would say, like, I'm not cool and I'm old. Looking back, I was always very stressed out about, I need to know, like, what is my life purpose? I'm going to be so wealthy, and just like all these really stupid things. And was envious of, the person who declared accounting the first day of registering at the university. But now fast forward to the 20 years since all of that. And I am very happy. I have a wonderful life. I've built a career that brings a lot of the things I'm interested in, things I didn't even know I was good at, right? The relationship building, the bringing people together, organizing programming, finding a problem and fixing it, and it's a really, what's the word? My mind just blanked. Fulfilling, super hard word, but whatever. It's a really fulfilling experience. And I think to all those people that were like, I'm going to do this thing, and they might be as happy or more happy, I don't know. It's irrelevant, because I have a great life and I've kind of allowed myself that freedom to do things that people at the time thought was crazy. I was like, you know what? I want to work remotely. I'm sick of having to commute. And keep in mind, I live in a small ski town. I live in a little resort town. So a commute here is nothing. I mean, outside of the blizzards and the weather, the actual mileage is not a thing. But I was like, I'm sick of this. I don't want to commute. I want to find remote work. And this was when that wasn't a thing, you know, but I found it, and it was doing community management. And like over time from that to this, I was like, you know, I was brave enough to just say, this is important to me. I'm going to figure it out. And to be able to look outside that, I think we're all kind of raised in the US anyways, but I think it's global. Like, oh yeah, you know, here's the checklist. You go to school, you pick a career, you get married, you have kids, check, check, check. And I think I've always been very comfortable with being like, nah, you know, and just kind of recognizing like there are things beyond that black and white, what we're told we're supposed to do. And I think the younger generations have a much better handle on that than the rest of us. You know, it's like Gen Xers and elder millennials.
Yeah.
We're transitioning, but I think they have a lot more freedom because, to your point, so many people right now are in school studying something, and what they end up doing doesn't exist. Okay. Facebook did not exist when I was in school. I am so glad. Social media did not exist. Like, thank gosh. I can never run for political office.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting
but at least I'm
observation.
Protected. At least, yeah. There's not an internet trail of my foolish youth decisions. Thank the Lord. But point being, like, if you would have told me, oh, there's even digital community management, like having email was cool. You know, it wasn't, not even everyone had a computer. I'm really aging myself. I'm going to stop. Point being, life will be what you can't even imagine. So don't be afraid to question it.
That's great, Jillian. And thank you for sharing that. And I think there's something in that for all of our audience to really think about that. On that difference between millennials and Gen X and baby boomers, and we could go generation by generation. There's always that kind of conflict and misunderstanding of each other. And I think millennials are a misunderstood group of people. They're actually very passionate and very purpose driven, but they're far more flexible and they're far more about purpose and meaning than we were in my view. And I think for leaders out there that are listening to this, if you take the time to really understand what makes a millennial tick, I think you'll be quite surprised. So that's something to look at. All right. So I'm really glad that you've been able to find joy and fulfillment in what you do, Jillian. And I'm going to come back to that, I think, in a moment. But there's people out there in the audience who are probably still scratching their head going, okay, 10 years ago, we didn't know what a digital community was. We certainly didn't know what a community manager was. So what is a digital community and what is community management?
Yeah. And don't feel bad if you're like, what? Like, this isn't advanced metaverse at all. It's just, you probably participate on some level in digital community. You just don't call it that in your head. So no worries. I gotcha. But yeah, the scoop, the skinny is, so digital community, a lot of people automatically think Facebook groups, right? I have left that platform, but before, when I was on it, I was in several groups. And I think a lot of people listening probably can identify. And if it's not, you know, and you might be in a group about your neighborhood, right? You might be in a group with cousins. I have a lot of cousins. And we had a group of all the cousins, so we could just talk on one side of my family. A lot of people would say it, they think that is community. I would say digital community can mean a lot of things. And in fact, the podcast that I co-host, the Community Experience, not to just drop a plug, but while we're here, we ask everybody at the end, one of the questions we ask is, how do you define community? Everyone's answer is it's kind of the Venn diagram. Like, there might be some crossover, but everyone has their own way of defining community. And I think that is what makes community great. So it's the same. I would say the same. Like, there's no one definition. Technically, it's a digital space where like-minded people surrounding a common topic get together. That can be all sorts of things. That can be adorabledogs.com, which I just made up, but I'm sure somebody owns that.
It probably exists, I'm sure.
Absolutely owns that. Yeah. And it could be where you join, and the whole point is to post photos of your cute dog and everyone oohs and ahs. Maybe it's specific, very niche down to it's for people who own dachshunds or, wiener dogs that live on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Like that group exists. You know what I mean? That's a community. All of those people, whether it's geographical, in this case, it would be geographical common interest. They are going to get together and celebrate and enjoy the thing that they're there for, which would be adorable wiener dogs in sweaters or, whatever, and photos. And that could be in person, that could be digital, like what we're talking about. So you log on to a certain platform, you have, credentials to get in, and then you participate in whichever way that community set up. Or it could be hybrid. It could be like, hey, we have this group online and we'll post pictures and this and that. And then once a month we meet at this park for anybody who can make it. So it could be a hybrid community. And I think it's funny because I was talking about how I kind of live in the gray area and I don't define myself. I would say maybe that's why I like community so much, digital community, because it's similar. You can join 3 different communities and they might be totally different, the experience, like all about it. Or I run a community, I've run other communities that are totally different, yet it's all digital community. I feel like I'm at my rambling point, so I should just check in.
No, you're actually stumbling onto an interesting point there. We're coming a little bit back to identity crisis and people that do seek out for who they are. And this has been an interesting revelation for me recently, kind of a little bit more. So I've always thought about, who am I? Who is this guy, Mick Spears, right? And you identify by what you do. But there's so much more to it than that, yeah. So yes, I'm a leader, but I'm also a father. I'm also a husband. I'm also a very bad golfer, right? So you're not kind of, I try to play tennis, once again, very badly. You're not kind of pigeonholed by just having kind of one identity. And it was interesting what you just said there about you can be a member of multiple digital communities and engage heavily in each of them as part of your personality. Am I taking the right message there, Jillian?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to also note that there are increasingly, we realize, and because access to create a community is so much easier, the barrier to entry is so much lower for someone to create a community to fulfill a need in their life or identity that they can't find in real life per se, is so powerful, and in the best way, like the good side of the internet, right? So I think of people who would be categorized as marginalized in some way. So whether it's socioeconomic, whether it's gender identity, whether it's racial identity, whether it's geography, if you live somewhere very rural and you don't have access to the arts, say, right? And you don't have the ability to travel to said arts, to big museums or whatever it is, there are opportunities to create or find, communities of people like you that you otherwise wouldn't know in real life. And to forge relationships digitally, and to just not feel alone. And I think that is so important as we become more reliant on technology, as our attention spans lower because of TikTok, whatever it is. We're such consumers online to say, no, this is not social media. This is a community, and it's where you build relationships. We need that. And while there's a lot of arguments I agree with that, we spend too much time online, I think you can pick and choose, right? So does it make you feel good or does it make you feel bad? If I scroll through Instagram, I might see my friends on, fabulous vacations or whatever, the highlight reel, right? That is social media. Everyone just posts their best.
Yeah.
And it can make you feel less than. versus participating in a community that is people who get me on for a certain reason, whatever it is. And it might be a support community. And support communities are my favorite kinds of communities. But it's so powerful. It's so powerful what you can accomplish. And I think about if you look at mental health statistics, and this is based on the US, and it's been a while, I'm rusty. So forgive me if I say something you're like, that's wrong. But in general, youth in rural communities have a significantly higher suicide attempt rate or success rate than places that are more populated. And there's a huge correlation between living in a rural community and also identifying like LGBTQ plus, that kind of thing, and having some sort of mental health crisis at some point in their youth. And so I just think about that. And I think about, and again, like in the US, a lot of rural communities are traditionally very conservative. And so if you identify as a different gender than you were, assigned at birth, or you're attracted to people of your same gender, whatever, and that is considered a sin, it's considered a problem, that's a really lonely existence. And so the thought that through your phone, which anymore, most of the world has a phone, you can connect to people who see you. Like, that's so amazing. It brings my little heart joy.
I think we're stumbling on something very important here. And this is something I'd not considered until we started talking today, Jillian, but this difference between what most people see in social media versus community. And I want to play some reflections back to you, and please let me know if I've got the right impression here. So you spoke about social media. You spoke about the Instagram, scrolling, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, whatever the case may be. And this is something I've spoken about on the show before, but I want to say it again. I'll probably say it again another 20 times in season 2. When you see someone on their Instagram feed, that is the curated version of their life. You're seeing a snippet of what they want you to see. So when you see them parading on a beat, what you're not seeing is what's happening in the rest of their life, right? So be very careful around comparison. So looking at someone else's life and thinking that they've got everything sorted out, and therefore somehow I'm not as worthy as they are, etc. I'm just going to say it bluntly. Just stop that. Stop that. Don't look at someone's Instagram life and think that's real life. Okay. What I'm hearing with community from Jillian is these communities that come together, yes, digitally and sometimes using the same platforms or adjacent platform. A community that comes together digitally where like-minded people can turn up as their authentic self, and where they see other people sharing their authentic self. And the ability there to attack loneliness and mental health issues through connectedness, being connected to other people that are experiencing the same things that you're experiencing, feeling the same things that you're feeling, have been through the same challenges that you may have been through. How's my reflection there, Jillian?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that's, personally very important to me, just people having access to support for their emotional health, for their mental health. And as someone that lives, I wouldn't consider where I live rural, but it's a ski town. So like we have a Whole Foods, we're fine. But it is like we live in what's called the suicide belt, which there's this strange correlation between high elevation. If you follow the Rocky Mountains in the US, that's considered the suicide belt because it has the highest, like disproportionately higher suicide rates. And our community has been rocked by that several times because people, choose to pursue that, and often successfully. And it's hard. It's hard to see people going through that. And so we have, a local organization that's trying to combat it with community events in person, mostly events that are just amazing. And yeah, so it's just something, it's something that's important to me. And I think it's something, if you have leaders listening to this, I think it's something, especially with younger people that might be in your employment or just in your personal life. If someone just seems, quiet and just kind of the sad kid sort of thing, they may really need community and they may not even realize it. And we can advocate for other people to find those communities, and not to say, you should jump in and be like, oh, what's your thing? Why do you feel lonely? Let's find a community together. But even just encouraging people to, to be like, oh, I found this really cool community resource. Have you seen this? That kind of stuff. I don't know. It's important. We have to take care of each other,
Yeah. And a society is measured by the way that it looks after each other, right? So let's dig in that a little bit further. I was going to bring this up later, but let's go right into it now.
Ooh, let's do it.
We are the Leadership Project. So our audience are leaders, sometimes they're first-time leaders that are trying to find their way. They've been appointed a leader and they're not really sure what to do and they're trying to navigate their way. Others are more experienced leaders that are looking to sharpen the saw. In some cases, they're leaders that are trying to mentor the next generation of leaders. So we are talking to people that are trying to improve their leadership skills. What message do you have to leaders out there about how to embrace community? All right. So if they're a leader in, let's say, a multinational company and they've got staff members who want to be part of community, how should a leader look at that?
Oh, I love that question. So as someone who runs successful communities and who has run many, I think the most important thing is to listen. That is the advice I give anyone starting their own community. What do your members want? Listen to them. They will help you. They will let you know what's important to them. You just have to ask, or even just listen, pay attention. What are people talking about? What are the common pain points happening, right? So that's easily transferable to employees or, these groups of mentees, yeah. And you can start picking out patterns. You can start seeing I've had several people mention this thing. And to offer community, especially in a corporate setting, can be a double-edged sword, right? Because be okay, we're going to have, a sports day where everyone plays softball, and community, yay, it's team building, but not everybody wants to do that. That sounds my personal nightmare personally, although it would be fun hanging out part I'd be down with, but the actual sports, no, thank you. And so again, I think it's important to ask people what they want, but I think it's also just providing the resources and information to people. If you're in, say, a one-on-one and someone's talking about, I lost a pet or a family member, it's just been really hard, something about their personal life. And you're like, even just the open-ended question, do you have support for that? Have you looked at are there communities out there that you could join to get the support you need? People don't think, especially if someone's in something like grief, for example, people don't think to look for that. There might be something your benefits program may offer X amount of mental health sessions, right? As a benefit. Cool. But is there just having the conversation with someone to be do you have support? What do you need? Maybe you can help, maybe you can't, but just opening that question up. In the sense of, one to many, if you're able to communicate with a very large amount of employees, I think just emphasizing the importance, especially in the pandemic, with many people working remotely, temporarily, but also maybe longer. How can you communicate and remind people the importance of them looking after themselves in that community sense. It doesn't have to be, we're launching a community for employees, because no one's probably going to want to use that, because it's just more talking to people from work, outside of work, right? But if you're talking about the importance of having a support system within their, within their personal life, and encouraging people to look for that, that's amazing, right? You don't have to have a solution, but you can at least talk about it.
Yeah, really good, Jillian. And the things I'm taking away from that, firstly, to listen, right? So listen to your team, ask the right questions, and then listen again, and really deeply listen to what they're saying to see what their needs are and what they want, and take the time. They'll appreciate that. They'll appreciate that you're treating them like they matter and that you care about what's going on in their world. The other part that we picked up there is I think there is a place for community within the organisation, because that builds a bit of team spirit and all that kind of stuff. But I love what you said about the community should kind of, you didn't use these words, but sprout roots that go beyond the organisational boundaries. And the example that you gave around, someone's dog or pet has passed on, there's a chance that they will get better support from a community that's got nothing to do with the workplace in that case. And just encourage people to be connected out there and find the support that they need. Yeah. Really good.
Yeah.
Really good, Jillian.
I do want to clarify. I agree that there is a place for community within, a company, within a group of employees. I was just using often I see they go to like, oh, this is how we'll do it, is some sort of team building exercise that has not considered everyone's interests. But yes,
I know what you mean. Yeah. Classic example of diversity, Jillian, the softball or the sports event, my heart's on fire, right? Because that's me. But it doesn't mean it's for everyone, right? So yeah, really good.
Yeah. Plus ableism, you don't know who can even, who physically can do that or wants to. It's a whole mess. But it goes back to listening, right? Because maybe a fireside chat with leadership team, maybe that's what people really want. Maybe they want to hear it from, the CEO that they don't have a chance to interact with very often. They want that person to sit down with their team or with, whatever size group and just have a fireside. Yeah. That's huge. Yeah. And that's a great team building experience.
Everyone has a voice and everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants their opinions to be valued. That's a great example, Jillian. I want to tap into something here. What about diversity of thought? How do we embrace diversity of thought in community?
Explain to me more what you mean by diversity of thought.
So there's two things that I'm thinking. One is to increase diversity of thought by allowing, let's use the multinational company again, and allowing your teams to go out there, spread their wings and join wide communities that are outside the organisation barriers to see what they'll learn, what they'll gain. Things like GitHub and other Substack and things like this, that software engineers, they get out there and they talk to other software engineers that work in other companies and they learn new things, right? So getting that kind of diversity of thought, that's the positive. I've also got an issue where there's a possible negative, which would be that if you're only joining communities of like-minded people, that you're also not challenging your own mind and getting out of your comfort zone. So I can see a positive and a negative, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. So I personally love things like GitHub, things that you can take a person's skill set, if you will, and say, hey, here's a whole group of other people that do that. You guys can, or you all can go over here and like build things together and do side projects and talk shop on a level that like myself would be like, what is happening? This isn't even the English language. What are you talking about? I think there's something really powerful about having professional community and beyond the like network term. So as a community leader myself, I will pay. I currently pay to be in a group of other people like me, and we can talk about the hard things. We can problem solve together. And we kind of have that, it's kind of like a mastermind, if you will, but it goes back to what we're doing in our careers and the goods and the bads that come along with that, the challenges, and we work together. And I have that support network, and I'm so appreciative of that, because sometimes I just need to get out of, take off my like blinders, right? And say, hey, here's a situation that I'm dealing with as a, director. Here's what I've tried. I'm not sure if I should do X, Y, Z, or, whatever. And then I get all these amazing, people with similar experience chiming in with ideas, or if they've done something like that, you know what I mean? And it's invigorating. It makes me like what I do more. I get challenged, which I think really does happen in those situations. And I'm grateful for it. So the idea of, and even, depending on the size of your company and all of that, but if you have a bunch of, software engineers, like encouraging them, like, yeah, go on GitHub. And, this is in the weeds, but like a lot of tech companies will be like X% of your time you can use to build whatever you want. What's interesting to you. Like that's definitely a model in some, especially like software companies. It's like, hey, use this time to build what you think is cool. And that creates an amazing employee experience, which then supports your company, because then they built something really cool that then you're like, oh, never thought of that. Now we can launch that. It's all wonderful. I agree that there is a danger of the groupthink mentality, getting too many yes men in the room. And then you're just patting each other on the back, and it's not actually nothing to be gained, no value in that. I think that can happen, but it's rarer and rarer, because if you create a safe place, if the community feels like a safe place where people can share and be honest, they will be. And so you will get that, kind of diverse thinking or different trains of thought. But I find that won't happen if it doesn't feel safe. And that's a whole other talk about community guidelines and policies and expectations within a community, which as an individual, when you join a community, especially a paid community, those are important things to look at, especially if you are cautious about joining and participating. So not just lurking, but you're going to join, you're going to share things that are happening in your life, whatever the common topic of the community is. You should feel safe in doing so. And so to know if this community feels safe to you, what's their code of conduct or community guidelines? How do they deal with issues?
Yeah.
If you have a problem, do you know who to go to? And do you have an idea of how it will be resolved? Those are great things to look at, to anybody listening. If there's like, oh, I want to join this, because there's a lot now. There's a lot of like paid professional groups out there. But what a lot of people running those groups don't do, because they aren't a community manager, which is fine, because they're really good at whatever they do, is they overlook something bad's going to happen.
Right.
Because it will. People are going to fight, even in a paid community. There will be a disagreement. There will be feathers ruffled. And there should be a very clear policy on, okay, if that happened, what do I do? What will you do as the community owner? And like, is this worth my time? Am I going to feel burned from this experience?
That's really interesting, Jillian, and it's something that I think many of us would not think about when we're starting a new group or a new association or a new community. I think it's not something that you'll instantly think of if you're not experienced in that field, and that's why people like you are so wonderful, that we have people like you in the world. I want to dig a little bit deeper now on psychological safety.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you yourself are part of a paid community outside SPI Media, where you're off talking to other community experiences managers, and please forgive me if I misunderstood it.
Nope, you got it.
What does that bring to you in terms of psychological safety? I'm talking Jillian Benbow now, not a academic answer. I want to know what Jillian feels about that.
Oh, it's just so nice it's talking shop, right? Because I can talk to my colleagues, I can talk to, my family, but the people I need in this role, especially because burnout is very big in community, in running communities. Community management is it's a taxing role. You have to have very strong boundaries with other people, but also with your time, because the community never sleeps. There's always someone who needs help. There's always something happening. And I'm a very strong advocate of holding boundaries around that, because you can get so burnt out so easily. So having other people who understand community and running community that you can talk to and talk through situations is priceless. I mean, I can't tell you, I can, not so much at SPI. SPI is kind of a dream because it's a paid professional community, right? As you know, everyone in SPI Pro is very nice and helpful. Like, that is the serve first mentality. It's a great, very safe place. You can share all sorts of stuff. Other communities I have run have been free. They've been anonymous. They've been very fighty. There's been a lot of weird stuff happening that you have to keep an eye on. People get very mad at you when you remove their account because they keep violating guidelines, that kind of thing, and having, like, in that situation, especially and it was very draining, having people that I could be like, there is a dumpster fire. This is happening. I need to walk away, and having someone who understands it and that you can talk to about it, hopefully like find some humor in, hence the dumpster fire. That's what I like to call like a big fiasco in community. It's a support network, right? It's that same thing. It's just people who get it. It's this niche industry. You can talk very frankly. You feel safe doing so, and vice versa. If someone else is having a situation, they can bring it to the group, bring it to the table, kind of do a hot seat, and myself and everyone else can give insight based on our own experience. I mean, I would pay a lot more money than I do to be a part of that. But it's also just, I have friends from other roles and other community professionals around that I have a very close relationship with, that I can really, really go there. And it's just fantastic. It would be a lot harder role without them.
So 3 powerful takeaways there for me, Jillian, is that ability to talk to other people that get you, because they are going through the same experiences that you are going through. They've probably got some tips, advice, or things that they've seen before, or at least they understand the same lexicon, all those kind of things, right? So getting people that get you and understand you, having that ability to talk outside the organisational boundaries and have a little bit more freedom there. Most people in their career at some time have an internal mentor, and I'm not here to dismiss that because it's powerful in its own way. But when you're talking to someone that works in the same organisational boundaries of you, there's always that air of limitation of, I need to be careful here, right? So that kind of openness. And the third one was making sure that community that you join is well managed, and is well managed from a safety point of view, watching out for any kind of trolling behavior or harassment, all kinds of things that can happen if it's not a well-managed environment. And kudos to you. I am part of one of your communities that you run in SPI, and you and your team just do an amazing job of the way that it's managed. So I feel very safe that I can say anything in SPI Pro, which is one of the communities you run, and I'm in there and other people are so supportive. It's just a wonderful environment. So that were my 3 takeaways there. I want to change gears a little bit now, because we've spoken a lot about multinational companies and this idea that you're a leader in a company and you're either yourself going out there and joining communities outside organisational barriers, or you're encouraging and empowering your team to do so, because you're going to all benefit and be richer from that experience. The other thing that we've seen a lot in the last couple of years is the rise of the solopreneur and the entrepreneur. Tell me about the role of community for someone like that.
Well, This is what I do. So SPI Pro is for that exact person. And so I can speak with some authority here in that the solopreneur life, being an entrepreneur, starting your own company, whether you identify, as the solopreneur or a small business owner, can be very lonely. And especially in the digital world, there's just a lot of platforms and products and things, and which one should I use? And you can watch as many YouTube demos or tutorials as there are available, but is that person affiliated? There's a lot of biases, and not that they're bad necessarily. It's a factor, and it's just going to be very overwhelming. Things that, you're everything from the CEO to the janitor. And well, I'm great at writing copy. I'm terrible at like back end web stuff. Like I have a website that they told me how to fix something, and I'm just like, I don't even know what that says. And so I just haven't done it, because I'm like, I like despise this kind of work. And again, it's just some of us are really good at one thing and not so good at another thing. And so point being able to have a safe place to come together and talk about that stuff, or even just say, hey, I have a lead magnet. Will you go look at it and tell me what you think? Or, here's two versions of this web page. Which one do you like better? Just having a group who get it, right? I think it's very common for people, especially, if you're doing like a side hustle or whatever, and it's out of your character, for lack of a better word. Like you've had a career at a corporation forever, and now you're launching this course on the side, and you ask your spouse, which sales funnel do you think is better? They're like, what? What's a sales funnel? And that's fine, right? Because it's just not their thing. So being able to talk to someone who gets that and who uses sales funnels and who uses lead magnets, be like, hey, what do you think of this? And they might be like, well, actually your call to action is really low and the page, it gets lost because you have all these, and you're like, oh, totally. I didn't see it because I'm too involved. I'm too close to it. There's something really special about that. And I think also just being able to talk to people who understand, like, I made 100 course sales. Oh my God. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And like, they genuinely understand what went into that versus again, the spouse who they're fine. We're not picking on spousey, but like, they're just like, oh, that's it. 100. And you're like, no, you don't understand. It's the entire internet. And I found 100 people, there's something really magical about having the support and it not feeling like competition.
Yeah. Cool. And it is an abundant mindset that comes in there where people are all just looking to support each other and grow the pie, not try and competitively take the biggest slice of the pie. Everyone's trying to grow and grow together. I'm going to have to raise my hand here and say I'm very, very, very lucky. My wife, most supportive woman in the world and wife in the world, she knows more about sales funnels than I will ever know. So I'm quite lucky, but not everyone has that.
You got the you're like the power couple.
Yeah, I won the lottery there. So she's amazing and she's very supportive.
Is she listening right now? Is that why
she does not always listen to the show. So this will be the test. I'm not going to mention this, and I'll see if she comes and we'll find out whether she listens or not.
We'll see.
But what you said was really important, and I want to repeat something back here. I'm going to put it in my own words and just challenge me if I get it wrong, Jillian. As a solopreneur, you do have to do everything, but you don't have to do everything. Now, I know that's a confusing statement. As a solopreneur, you are responsible and accountable for running your business, making it profitable, everything from CEO to janitor, as Jillian said. But if you surround yourself with the right community and people that can support you and coach you, all of a sudden it doesn't feel like, oh, okay, so I've got to be the world's best copy editor, as you mentioned, through to I need to know how to edit videos. I need to be able, whatever it is, I need to be able to do a webinar and have a wonderful lead magnet at the end of it that results in discovery calls. It's all of these things that happen. Yes, you do have to do them all, but no, you don't have to feel like you're alone in all of that. You can build a community around you, join a community. that can coach you, and everyone, like if you look at the directory of people on SPI Pro, every single one of them has got a superpower, every single one of them. And if you can tap into that network, all of a sudden, your multiplication of impact on the world is going to be amazing, because you can go, oh, I need to talk to someone that knows how to set up video. I know, I'm going to talk to Dan Bennett, the entrepreneur. Brilliant at setting up home studios, right? So you don't have to try and do it yourself, right? You can join a community that's going to coach you and educate you and support you through that. I mentioned the word alone there, and I kind of did it on purpose. What about loneliness for a solopreneur? Tell me about that.
It's so real. Yeah. And I think that's a huge part of why Pat and Matt, the CEO of the team at SPI, that's why SPI Pro exists. And fun fact, they actually launched it early because of the pandemic. It initially was going to be following. So what was that? 2020. It was going to be 2021 was the intention to launch it. And then the pandemic happened. And I think loneliness in particular, especially once you removed the opportunity to work at a coffee shop or a co-working space, and it really was like solopreneur, the need for it was just so clear. So it was accelerated in launch, and it's so true. You get, when you're doing your own thing, even if you have, part-time help or full-time help, it's just, you need human interaction that's beyond, did you do this thing? Okay, cool. Like even just this, even just having conversations as face-to-face as we are, right now, which by the way, I mean, we all have Zoom fatigue, but how cool is this? I'm in Breckenridge, Colorado. You're in Singapore, and it's like, let's have a face-to-face talk. It's so important. And it can be very tiresome. Like the effort required to coordinate a lot of one-on-one calls with people that might be, in your network or could be, introduction calls, LinkedIn messaging. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So if you can find a community that kind of has curated those people for you, which in the solopreneur digital business owner arena, that's exactly what we're doing with SPI Pro. And like the result is you can see it in the community. It's you bring this group of people together and it's magic, like you have like this access pass into, oh my gosh, there's so many people here that are doing something that I want to talk to them about on the, I want to have them on the podcast, or I just want to see what they're about, and they're hosting an event. So I'm going to go and learn about, quizzes. That's a hot thing right now in Pro. Like, how do you do an intelligent, lead magnet quiz that then shows the person exactly, the best thing for them. But just being able to have these conversations with several people who are doing that or did it well and want to teach you about it, it's great. And I love the reciprocity because like you said, there's all these people willing to help and talk, and vice versa. There's all these opportunities to contribute, to say, depending, like if it's community, I'll jump in and talk. If it's, SEO, I'll sit back and watch the experts talk because I'm not an adult at that table. I might tag someone in that I'm like, this person's really good at that.
And this is starting to turn into an advertisement for SPI Pro, and I apologize to the audience for this, but what's brilliant there is everyone in SPI Pro is turning up to serve first, and then they're benefiting second, so that everyone is there to contribute and support each other. So it's just wonderful, and you should be very proud. You and the team should be very proud of what you've created there. I do think...
Yeah, go. Sorry. Nope. Sorry. I was just going to say, even if I'm using SPI Pro as an example, obviously, because I know it very well, but it's a good, if solopreneurism, I don't know if that's a word, is not your thing. It's still like the best practices in Pro are very transferable to other communities. And if you have your own, or if you're looking for a community, there are things to look for. And it's just like the member participation and like I said, the reciprocity, the feeling of safety, all of these things, they're all it doesn't just have to be pro. It could be anything.
Yeah.
It works for anything.
Fully agree, and I can see it's very transferable, the skills and the community that you've developed there. Okay, I want to leap forward now. We said 10 years ago that people didn't know what a digital community was. We've grown up a lot in the last 2 years in particular, but what next? We hear a lot of talk about Web 3.0 and DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations, etc. We hear people talking about NFTs, and most of us don't fully know what it means yet. We're still learning, etc. Crystal ball time. What happens next, Jillian Benbow? What's beyond the digital community?
I'm probably a really bad person to ask this because I'm barely understanding like the metaverse stuff and like all it's like science fiction in many ways. But I think so. There's been a boom in online communities due to the pandemic. Several of them are not well run, so I think they will go away. And I think we will have a rise of, so kind of like how social media, there was like so many different platforms, and now there's much less. And again, it's kind of bouncing back, the pendulum swinging back, where people are leaving the big ones. And now there's like very niche ones, good or bad. I'll just leave it at that. I see possibly the same thing happening with community. Like someone's going to launch a community. And I think Reddit's a good example of this as a pioneer. Like Reddit is very large. It's free. It's anonymous, which good or bad. There's some great parts of Reddit. There's some really awful parts of Reddit. It's basically the web within, all the subreddits kind of make up this world in Reddit, and you can kind of pick if you're on, the dark side or not, I guess. I think someone else is going to do that in a more technologically advanced way.
Right.
And it might become like a dominant thought of what people consider digital community. I also think there will continue to be smaller niche communities. And I think those are going to have the real value from a human experience standpoint.
Yeah.
Obviously the giant Facebook version of community that I'm thinking will happen is going to, it'll probably just be like Facebook. It'll start off really cool, and then it'll turn into your data being sold. It'll fall. But yeah, I think, there's so many, like Topia is a great example of this like digital virtual experience community where you are like, there's a land, there's the Topia, and you go in and you interact with things. And it can be anything from like, it can almost be like a game to an event to a community, but just how you use it is much more, it's not as flat, I guess. It's not just text-based back and forth forum, Slack, chat-esque type communication. There's this added layer to it. And so I think that kind of thing, along with, with virtual reality and whatnot, I think these are all going to start playing into digital community in some capacity. But at the end of the day, the things that matter will still matter. And that's feeling safe, being interested, wanting to interact and participate. Whether it's now you're like this digital icon person wearing 3D goggles or not, like that all will come and pass or whatever. The foundation will still be, like-minded people, whether you're trying to learn something, whether you're trying to get support, whatnot. It'll be that connection, that human connection. That'll always be the foundation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm keeping a very open mind about it. I'm trying to follow it and make sense of it. And I don't think anyone has made full sense of it yet, but it will come. And this kind of distributed autonomous organisation, the DAO one, is the one that I'm watching to see what comes of it. Something interesting you said there was about the niche. With everything we've spoken to today, we spoke about community being people that you can talk to that get you. And the more niche you are, the more chance you'll find those people that get you and see the authentic you. So I think the niching is important. The connectedness is important. The emotional aspect all of that, the human relationships, even though it's a digital world, they'll still be human relationships at the core of it. On the DAO front, I'm watching it from a distributed leadership point of view, right? So in a DAO where technically there is not supposed to be a single one person in charge, and it's, all these different people have all got their stake in the DAO, and they're contributing and they're taking back from the DAO. They're inputting and they're getting rewarded, whether that be fiscally or in other ways. They're all getting rewarded for what they bring to the DAO. I'm watching that from a leadership point of view. How is the world of leadership going to change? Because that's what I pride myself on, is being an expert in leadership and trying to help people navigate the world of leadership. The only thing I'm certain of in all of that, Jillian, is that when you and I are talking 10 years from now, something will exist that doesn't exist today when we're having this conversation. And we'll look back and go, there you go. That's what it was.
It was
that
so
was what
obvious.
Happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, very good. I want to start drawing us to a close now, and I promise to come back to a question based on something you said early on, and it's really important to me to hear this answer, and I'm sure my audience is going to be interested. You said that you find community management to be very fulfilling. Are you able to pinpoint what it is about that fills your heart with joy and fulfillment?
Yeah, I think so. Mostly. I think it is a culmination of taking things I enjoy or are part of my natural skill set and bringing them all to the same thing. So I naturally like to find pain points and fix them. How can we make this more efficient? Like, efficiency is my favorite thing in my work life. I wish I was that passionate in my personal life, but I am not. And I think just coming to the realization that I really like helping people, but in certain ways. You know what I mean? Like, there's a boundary with a digital community. You can close your computer, put your phone down, and walk away. That makes it extra special. Not to say, I find I'm generally a very helpful person. Like, I was skiing the other day and I saw a guy had fallen and he wasn't moving. My family just kept skiing. I went over there and was like, "Are you okay? Let me go get ski patrol." Like, I naturally am that person. If I see someone in crutches, I'm going to open a door, grab their bag for them, even though they're like, "No, I'm fine," because I know they're not fine because I've been that person. And, we all say that, "Oh, no, I'm good," even though like you're struggling. So I think it's just kind of this culmination of these things that I really enjoy doing, or naturally it's just like how my brain works, and being able to do that as a career. I think that's a big part of it. And I think accepting that, community management as a career is still so new. Even like the C-level community roles are starting to be a thing. They were not a thing for a while. I mean, like, director was kind of, I guess, VP, but like actual getting on the C-suite, as like the fact that this career path can lead to that. It's amazing. And so I think I'm just invested in it. And I'm also just very invested in the idea of what community can bring to society.
Yeah, good.
Right. So sure, like, community organizing is amazing. You look at social justice initiatives, things like that, like community builds the future in a way, so if I can be a part of the digital side of that and focus on the good and focus on bringing people together through kindness and support and things like that, then I feel like it's a life well lived. I feel like I'm doing something to better, leave it better than I found it. And so all of that combined just makes me like, yay,
I'm hearing very powerful things there, Jillian. So taking advantage of your strengths and your superpowers. So your natural tendencies and your personality suits this work. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Making sense of the world, making it more efficient, and making an impact on the world, making it a better place. And I also pick up there that it's also a growing world because there's something new every day in community. So you're also learning something new every day and shaping a future world. So yeah, really good, Jillian. All right. So, and there was one more thing I want to pick up on. I think it's important for the audience to hear as well. In this 24/7 digitally connected world, did you hear what Jillian said about boundaries? Super important. So everyone out there, whether you're digitally connected to a traditional workspace or any other approach, do have a think about what are your boundaries? What are your digital boundaries? What are your personal boundaries? And are you respecting those? That was an important message in Jillian's discussion there as well. All right, so that does bring us to a close. Got the rapid fire round now, Jillian. So we did discuss this earlier. So here we go. Let's see how you go. What's the one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were 20?
I am enough.
You are enough. Absolutely. Thank you. And that's important for
everybody
all of us
listening.
Yes.
You are enough.
You are enough. Well done. What's your favorite book?
Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert.
Okay, I don't know this one. What's the synopsis?
It's about leading with creativity and curiosity.
Cool.
And just, yeah, it's how I live my life. Like, just be curious, follow that crumb trail. And it, and if it doesn't turn into, I launched a business and I'm a gazillionaire because of it, that's okay. You learned something.
Fantastic. I love it. And I love following breadcrumbs or crumb trails. That's what I do in podcast interviews. Yeah. Very good.
Yeah, right. know.
And what's your favorite quote?
It doesn't matter where you go, there you are.
Powerful. Like it. All right. Excellent, Jillian. Thank you so much for your time today. I know that our audience would have gotten a lot of benefit out of today. I certainly do. I always do, but I loved listening to you and learning. People are probably going to want to know a lot more. How do they get in contact with you if they want to know more about community or if they want to know more about SPI Pro or any other topic?
Yeah, well, the website's easy. It's just spipro.com. If Mick is smart about this, he'll have a referral link just for you if you want to go check it out. Hint, hint. And then I'm mostly on Twitter, just at Jillian Benbow on Twitter. And that is probably the easiest way to get a hold of me. I love talking community, so don't be shy.
Excellent. I'm going to put those links in the show notes. So I will put a referral link. Thanks for the hint. I will do that for sure. And also put your Twitter handle there on the show notes as well. So thank you so much, Jillian. It's been absolutely delightful. It always is delightful talking to you. What I've loved today is bringing you to my audience and for everyone else to hear you and hear your wisdom and insights. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's been great.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Project podcast at mixbeers.com. A big call out to Faris Sadek for his sound design and editing of our audio and video content, and to the whole team at TLP, Joanne Gozon, Gerald Calabo, Rika Vidanes, and my wonderful supportive wife, Say Spears, who is also our operations manager. This show would simply not be possible without you. If you've enjoyed the show, please leave us a rating and review at Apple Podcasts. You can catch the video podcast and our video of the week at the Leadership Project YouTube channel. And you can join the conversation at the Leadership Project Facebook community group. We look forward to bringing you more great content and interviews next week as we continue to learn together and lead together. In the meantime, please do take care, look out for each other, and always remember to challenge the status quo.